All right, let's do this. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another proud edition of the Uper Farmer Cigar Talks. Welcome. Tonight, I'm smoking again the Libra Zebra. Very fun cigar. Quite tasty. And, as promised, still drinking water. Delicious, clear, crisp water. I'm still on that silly Exodus 90. Not having alcohol. So, tonight we have a special guest. Kind of fun. I wanted to try out an interview or a team style to this vlog for a while. And it just so happened that a lovely lady was able to clear up her schedule and join me tonight. So, tonight we have the lovely Lena. Hi. What are you smoking tonight?
Nothing.
Aww. I'll blow some smoke your way. Hold on.
No, thank you.
And what are you drinking?
Water.
Well, what's in the water? It looks red.
I don't remember what it's called. The infusers, I guess?
The Walmart brand of Mio. So, yes, she is also on the Exodus 90, although it's a men's program. She's joyfully supporting me. So last week we talked about politics or religion. You can thank the lovely Lena here because she is saving you guys from politics, which probably would have killed the last 2 subscribers that I have sent you running. So what do you want to talk about tonight?
I have no idea.
Well spoken. So instead we'll just do an interview style. So all right. What do you do for a living?
I teach college level English classes and I teach for VipKid.
Now what is VipKid?
It is an online ESL or English as a second language teaching corporation.
Now do you speak any Chinese?
Well, I am learning.
You're learning. Now was that a prerequisite to learn?
To learn? No.
So what are the prerequisites to teach English in China?
For VipKid, the prerequisite would be you have to have a bachelor's degree at minimum.
So what's your bachelor's in?
English language and literature.
All right. Is that it? Just a bachelor's? You don't need anything like special certificates or visa or anything like that?
Well, you don't need a visa because you don't go to China, at least not in the physical sense. But you do need TESOL of some kind. It would be a teaching certificate to teach English as a second language.
Oh. Are those difficult to get?
You know, it depends on the program. Some of them are short, like 20 to 40 hours, and some of them are longer, like 130 hours for the course.
So what else do you, is there anything else you do besides just teach English and then teach English to Chinese kids?
Well, I homeschool, which is teaching math, English, science, history.
So how did you get into homeschooling? It seems like kind of a weird thing to do these days.
An unfortunate failure of the public school system.
All right, explain what happened.
Our oldest son had a severe hearing problem, so he had a speech delay, and much to our disappointment with the public school system, they felt that he was pretty much unteachable. So rather than let him be neglected via the school system, we started homeschooling.
Oh. And how's that going?
Mostly good. We have really good years, and we have some years that are meh. We have favorite subjects like history and English, and not so favorite subjects like math.
So is there any advice for people getting into homeschooling? How do you deal with those not so fun subjects like math, the hated subjects?
Patience, and remembering that they have 18 years to learn it. It's not a we have to do this year or the child's life is going to be ruined. They have plenty of time to master the material and the concepts.
Okay. So being very patient and understanding that you have time to Time to master it. And how is the mastering of math going in your schoolhouse? What do you call it? Schoolhouse, school group, horde? What did you have a name or anything you call your homeschooling group?
The kids have a Latin name for it.
Oh, what's the Latin name? I like Latin.
I believe it's Alliance and Terras Ultima Kids.
Ah, the last kids on Earth. Very. Is there a story behind that?
Oh, that's a book series
Okay.
about 5 children surviving the not really zombie apocalypse, although zombies are in it. I would say it's a monster apocalypse.
And we don't mind dropping names because, again, I don't get any money off anything that I do for this channel. So go ahead. What's the name of that book series?
Oh, that would be The Last Kids on Earth by Max Brallier, I believe.
Oh, okay. And the kids seem to enjoy that book?
They love the series. They'll kind of love a series where you read the books over and over again until the next one comes out.
So why do you think they like that series so much? What makes it so appealing?
Well, it is pretty much a utopia for children. I mean, they fight battles against villains, of course, but the children have no parents there to tell them what to do, when to do it. They have no bedtime. They pretty much eat whatever they want, which unfortunately is whatever they can scavenge. So prepackaged food, every kid's dream. Cookies and what's the fun dip?
That's good stuff. I enjoy a good fun dip when I was a child.
Well,
So isn't this kind of a bad influence book? Maybe this isn't something you should be encouraging upon your homeschooling horde?
teaches self-confidence and self-reliance and the ability to do things on their own.
Ah, so there's a deeper meaning behind the books than just the face value of a utopian
Well,
for
it
children.
also teaches self-cooperation. I mean, the kids work together to survive. And they make friends with monsters, which honestly is unique because in most situations it's kill the monsters. But the kids don't kill the zombies unless absolutely necessary. Usually they wound them to get away.
Interesting. All right, so back to this homeschooling. We talked about how to deal with the difficult topics. How is there a strategy to try and get kids to enjoy topics? Like history, that wasn't my favorite growing up. I must admit that was not something I hear many children say is their favorite topic.
I'd say pretty much all of the kids enjoy history, but it's through books. So when you get to read stories from the perspective of a child that lived through that historical time period, it's much more interesting. And gaining that interest then makes you want to learn more about that time period.
So it makes it much more relatable.
Yeah, it makes it more relatable for that age group. And fortunately, in our situation, you have the 2 different levels. So we have the upper level studying the same time period, but in a much more advanced way, and then the lower level studying in a more simplistic format. And interestingly enough, the kids all seem to enjoy each other's books for the most part.
So you said there's multiple books from the child's viewpoint as a history lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's a good example of one?
Well, one of my personal favorites, not the kids' personal favorites necessarily, would be Across 5 Aprils. I can't remember the author, but it talks about the 5 years of the Civil War, and the boy's birthday is in April. So you grow up with this boy through the 5 years of the Civil War, and every April marks not only the Civil War, what's going on in that, what's going on in his family, and what's going on in the country. So it's an excellent living history book because you experience it through his time.
Now you mentioned living history. Do you do any projects with the kids to bring history alive?
Well, we did get Dad involved with one of our books. They read Miracles on Maple Hill last year or the year before. And that book involves interestingly enough, they're learning about the World War II time period. So Dad, the father in the novel, comes back from World War II, I believe. And he has severe, at the time it's called shell shock, of course, now we would call it PTSD. And Dad kind of goes off into this remote cabin, which was the mother's family cabin. And in the process of being alone in the woods, he starts to recover from PTSD. And his family then joins him and learns about syruping and gathering maple syrup. And of course, we finally have maple trees on the property now, so we started collecting maple syrup.
And how'd that go?
The kids love homemade maple syrup.
Good.
I'm not a huge fan of the mess.
Okay.
I have to admit the smell isn't terrible, but I think if this is going to be a permanent fixture of our springtime, I would definitely like to set up an outdoor method of turning the sap into syrup.
So does the book talk about how to make an outdoor method that you mentioned, or?
It talks about what is in their outdoor sugar shack, so what's necessary and what's needed. It doesn't really explain the actual complexities of building a sugar shack or anything like that. It focuses mainly on actually how to collect the sap and when the sap is ready.
So I'd imagine then would probably engage some research on your children's side to try and figure out the best way to make the sugar. What's the stove called in the sugar shack? Do they mention what that's called at all, or?
I'm sure they mention it, but I can't think of it.
Okay. So we've talked about some of the fun stuff about homeschooling, as far as the history lessons and whatnot. Now I've heard a lot of negatives when it comes to homeschooling. Especially, let's just start homeschooling in general. What are some negatives from the teacher's perspective? And then we'll kind of go to a broader spectrum, maybe what society thinks. We can address those. So let's start first off, as a teacher, what's kind of the big drawbacks or challenges that you face?
Being the one to teach everything, that can be challenging.
So now how do you get around that challenge? Because obviously, how long have you been homeschooling now?
10, 12 years?
10,
I
12.
guess.
So clearly you must have some strategies for that. So how do you get around being the sole educator? I mean, I know a lot of teachers that are on my bad list, and I had multiples, so.
You don't become the sole educator. Enlist dad to teach science, or in this case, hopefully math soon. I don't always agree with Grandpa's viewpoints, but I have to admit that the kids' grandfather gives them a very interesting political and historical viewpoint. Plus, being in the Air Force, he can provide a lot of insight about airplanes and stuff like that. Grandma, not so great with most of the historical accuracy, but she can give you a very good first-hand account of what she went through as a child, which is pretty impressive and intense at times. Being a military family, they also have a lot of experience with other cultures and around the world, so they get that exposure.
Now, you're a military family, or are you talking about your parents were military?
My parents.
Your parents were military, okay.
So they do get that exposure from Grandma and Grandpa. Also, there's co-ops, although with the
Now, what's a co-op?
A co-op is where a bunch of homeschool families get together and the moms or dads join in and teach different lessons. I've taught creative writing. There's, if you're maybe good in a physical sense, you might teach gym or weightlifting or maybe health and fitness, that sort of thing. And each mom has a strong point, so they teach that subject for a semester or a term or sometimes multiple semesters. Usually geography is thrown in there by a different level. The kids are often separated out by grades or ages, and then
Now you mentioned moms. Is there a law that says only the mom can homeschool the kids, or?
no, that's just generally who stays home. There are a few dads that I know of that homeschool primarily, but often it's the mom that does the homeschooling.
Okay. Now you mentioned co-ops. That's something that I know one of the myths they have is that homeschoolers are very isolated. They kind of keep inside their homes. They don't visit people. Now are co-ops something that actually is that normal, or is that something you have strived to develop and engage with?
That really depends on where you live. Certain parts or certain more, I guess, metropolitan areas would have a lot more groups. Where we live, they're not that common. We've helped build a couple, and then we've also been able to just join a few, depending on where we're living at the time.
So this is something, though, in general, homeschoolers are for, though, the co-ops.
Definitely.
So the stereotype of them being the lone wolf, the off in the woods, they don't see people except for maybe twice a year to pick up the winter supplies and the summer supplies. That's probably just a false stereotype or fake news, as they say.
Well, I guess if you could be antisocial and a socialite at the same time, that might describe homeschoolers. They like to be social with certain people and not with just anybody or everybody.
So they're more selective.
Yeah, probably more selective.
Okay. Now, do you fall into that category? Do you find yourself being very selective with who you allow your kids around, and are you pretty open with they can visit and be friends with anyone, and you'll socialize with anyone, with reason, of course?
I socialize with pretty much anybody within reason. Obviously, if somebody gives me a bad vibe or a creepy feeling, I'm probably not going to encourage my children to go hang out with that individual alone. But
Okay.
for the most part, I don't really judge a book by its cover, as you would say.
Another English alliteration there. I do like that. That was very nice. So let's go on to that. Talk a little bit more here, since I know you got to leave here soon. That antisocial. That's usually homeschoolers are always pegged as antisocial. Are your children antisocial?
No.
Oh, explain that a little bit. I mean, every mother thinks their child plays with everyone and is everyone's best friend, but you kind of say it with a bit of conviction in your voice.
After watching my children with public school children and maybe even sometimes other homeschool children, they are very social, they're very friendly. It doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, or how young you are, or what you look like. They are willing to go out of their way to be friendly and have fun, and they just want to play, so it really doesn't matter.
So you mentioned you've seen like the public school kids. So do you have experience with this, or are you just kind of generalizing?
Experience with it.
What's your experience with the public school sector?
A lot of public school kids that we've met are afraid to, not just to befriend somebody, but to even socialize with kids they don't already know from the public school system. So it's like watching a toddler that you take to daycare for the first time. They're standoffish, they're scared, and they don't interact at all.
Okay. Now, do you have any experience inside a public school at all?
I was a substitute teacher for a long time.
Oh, okay. And did you enjoy that, or did that kind of also push you towards the homeschool route?
Well, I enjoyed it, but I did teach in special needs classes, so I saw a different aspect of the public school system than perhaps what I've only subbed in regular ed classes a few times, and there was a reason I kept it to a few times.
Understandable. So let's go over some other stereotypes, since we have just a few minutes here. What are some other stereotypes that you'd like to destroy when it comes to homeschooling? I know one of them, especially growing up, I knew some homeschool kids who the mom would basically teach them arithmetic and simple, plus and minus, and then let them go play video games and call that, I don't know, a learning lesson or a living life lesson. They're learning creativity. They put them, and then they'll sit them in the corner with an art easel and paint, and have them go paint eyeballs and faces. Is that you see? Talk about that stereotype. The stereotype of the homeschool that just does the bare minimum, kind of dumb as rocks kids.
Well, I'm sure that exists. I'm not going to say it doesn't, but I wouldn't say that's the norm or even common. I think there's a lot more freedom with homeschooling to let your child explore the things that they love. And we have a daughter who wants to become a video game designer, so she's learning coding and Japanese because the company she wants to work for is currently located in Japan. So she's taking every bit of pain to learn what she can now. She is trying Japanese cuisine and foods, which some of it tastes delicious and some of it I'm on the fence about, to be nice, but you know, she wants to experience it, so she is. Now, Can she do that stuff all day? No, that's after she finishes her basics, her what the public school system would call your core subjects: math, science, English, literature, reading. I would say in general, most homeschool kids actually get more experience in those areas. In public schools, the average child reads 3 to 5 books a year. In our homeschool, I can't imagine not reading 30 to 40 books on an average school year.
So you talked about the freedom to kind of switch up what the child is interested in, and kind of get away from maybe teaching social studies, math, science, English, and going into like coding, like you said, for your daughter. Is there any other your children who already have interests that they're pursuing, and you kind of help them by maybe adding that to their curriculum?
We have 2 daughters who are 9 and 7 who are interested in learning Chinese, so they're taking one-on-one Chinese lessons through a sister company or what I work for. One of them wants to become a police officer, so we encourage her to study becoming a police officer. She really has a focused brain, so if she sees something, it's like she's memorized it. So we encourage that. Lots of seek and find and hidden picture books are her favorite things, so we keep those around. We have one interested in dance, and despite our better efforts, we have a very hard time finding dance lessons for her. So yeah, I would say we have the opportunity to expand that towards any child that's interested in something, not just one. The public school, they can only offer so many different options before it's just not practical with hundreds of students or even 20.
So would you say then a benefit of homeschooling is you can still get the basics, but allow them to focus on what they're very much interested in?
They can definitely get more of an individualized instruction and focused attention on topics that are important to them. In most other countries, kids start learning about their chosen career field in 5th, 6th grade, 10, 12 years old, and they're studying to become a doctor. It's only here where that's not common. It's, in Russia, they start a trade study in like 13 years old.
Interesting.
In Mexico, they start learning their specific career field that they're interested in at 12 and 14. So it's pretty common in other countries to let children develop that focus. We focus on STEM in such a general fashion that kids actually it's doing a disservice.
I did hear your alarm go off, and you probably got to run. But real quick, what is STEM?
STEM is the focus of science and technology education and media, I think is what it stands for.
Interesting. Okay.
But it's a focus on STEM careers. So STEM would be science careers and careers in mechanics, which are excellent and amazing careers, but we've limited our focus so much that we've almost forgotten about the arts entirely.
So what you're saying is your daughter who wants to be the programmer would probably do pretty good in public school with STEM type basis, but the one who wants to be a cop might not be interested in.
But part of video game designing is art and actually designing the physical characteristics of your character and the storyline and all that. So if you're only pushing towards STEM, which is more building engines and robots, then you're completely negating the creativity aspect.
So more that fit inside the box type.
Truly fitting inside the Tinker Toy box.
Interesting. Well, I'm very glad you joined me here. I know you've got to run. I'll still do my little closer here. So thank you very much, Teacher Lena. I hope to have you back because I think a lot of our viewers might be interested in a part 2 or 3. Maybe this might become a little mini series. So thank you very much. I know you got to run to your appointments. So again, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
And we'll definitely try to get you back. All right, folks. As Teacher Lena bolts for the door because she's got an appointment, which I probably made her late for. That's okay. Hope you enjoyed this. Something a little different. Again, I wanted to try to do these more interview type styles. I think that actually went very well. Talking about homeschooling, I know especially with what's going on in current events, there are probably lots of people who are very interested in this topic. I don't know if the 5 people who actually watch my videos are interested in homeschooling, but yeah, thank you very much for Teacher Lena. She's already bolted out the door. In case you didn't realize, that is my wife, who I'm guessing most of you guys, the 5 subscribers, definitely know who she is. And I would like to bring her back. I think homeschooling is a wonderful topic. I'm glad she got me away from the political topic I had planned for tonight. So yeah, something you're interested in, we'll try to put some more out there. And I enjoyed having a conversation with her. It went a lot better than she thinks it might have. So anyway, I'm going to end it here. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my beautiful cigar. I'm enjoying the world out. I'm glad I got this one. Yeah, hope everyone stays safe, and we'll talk to you later.